quick reminder, we now have a Discord channel called The Hideout. Join for behind-the-scenes tidbits, get buying recommendations from yours truly, and, just hang out. Scan the QR code on the screen or use the invite link in the description to join. Alright, back to the video. Welcome back. Hope you missed me. I was supposed to be reviewing a budget IEM called the Twistura D-Major, a $30 fairly budget option that's making the rounds. But upon ordering, I think the store got the order wrong and they sent me the higher end module, the D-Major. So technically, I got a $50 IEM for 30 bucks. Yay! But anyways, with that happy little mistake, let's see what the D-Major has to offer. So the box of the D-Major is of a good size. You've got the render of the IEM in the front as always, with some info in the back and a graph of one of the filters that are being used. I think the box for the D-Major is a similar design, just with like a different box color and maybe like a different name under here. Probably that's why they confused the shipments, I don't know. You take the little box out and you have the inner box which has a pattern. It's very reminiscent of the Tangzu boxes, and you get the shiny IEMs on top as well as this whole box at the bottom containing everything else. So below the IEM insert, you have this nice hefty metal piece which contains the red and blue tuning nozzles. So within the big box that we had here, you're going to be getting a tip holder which contains what I will describe as moondrop spring tips but with a narrow bore. And you'll also be getting the more standard silicone ear tips in free sizes as well. Then you get a decent carrying pouch with a sort of glossy finish, and it's got a pop open top mechanism for easy access. Speaking of which, inside of such pouch, we're going to be getting a nice dongle with metal parts, a nice silver colored wire, and you got that Twistura logo on this side here. I wasn't able to see what DAC it's using, but it powers the D-Major and most other IEMs just fine. And finally, you do get the instruction manual and a kind of QC stamp card, but it's a wired IEM. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? So the cable for the D-Major is slim, fairly slick, and it's silver colored. There is a glossy metal jack and the always welcomed chin slider over on this side of the cable. It's a perfectly average cable, not bad, but not too great. So the D-Major itself has quite a different, unconventional design. I've heard it described as looking like the letter D, but to me it kind of looks more like a sideways U, if you know what I mean. The front, it uses a hefty mirror finish metal that's basically a scratch and fingerprint magnet, but there is a transparent-ish circular window that kind of shows a little bit of the wiring inside, making for a nice focal point in the design. The logo's over here as well. The part that's facing your ear, it's more conventional, I guess, and it fits the ears alright, but not the most comfortable thing ever. Now on the side, you will also see the 2-pin female connectors, and there's venting below it, which adds to the sort of very distinct design we got here. So another cool thing is going to be the screw-on replaceable filters. So as you can see, the black filters are installed by default, but you can switch to the red nozzle and it will increase the low end emphasis, tones down the upper mids and the treble. It turns the D-Major into sort of a bright V-shaped kind of sound, whereas with the blue nozzle, it has no dampening material and it turns the D-Major into a very bright sound, heck, even a little too bright for me. They have a pretty noticeable effect on the sound, which I actually welcome, because other IEMs with replaceable nozzles, sometimes they just don't change the sound much, which renders it kind of useless, If you're gonna make something like this, make it noticeable. With the D-Major, my advice would be you should get the warmest or darkest source you can to balance out its bright tonality. It's a pretty sensitive IEM, so it doesn't need much power to get good listening volumes. For testing, I'll be using the standard silicone ear tips included in the box, which has a similar feel and shape to the Acoustune AET07s. The standard black nozzles will be used, and I will describe changes to sound with the other nozzles when it is relevant. But with all that out of the way, let's get to the sound of the Twistura D-Major. So with whatever nozzle you use, the D-Major will have an overall bright sound, veering to like a bright V-shaped when you use the red nozzle, and becoming just straight up like buzzsaw bright with the blue nozzle. But let's start with that bass. On the low end, the D-Major is conservative and fairly restrained. It has some impact, but not quite to the point of having that slam factor, you know? You get a fairly even distribution of the sub bass and the mid bass, and thanks to its reserved nature, it does not bleed into the mid-range, keeping it clean. The red filter will increase the bass quantity, getting some of that extra rumble from the dynamic driver, and it performs well for electronic music, although it is still a few notches away from bass head levels. Mid-range on the D-Major sort of has two faces, depending on the filter that you have on. Lower mids are similar regardless of the nozzle, with a slightly warmed interpretation. With the black and blue nozzles, you get a slightly sharp tonality from the upper mid-range, with the black nozzle giving this sort of nice crispiness to the vocals, whereas the blue nozzle, well, it introduces two noticeable peaks that you can both see in the graph and you can hear it in real life. It's boosting up usually electronic synths, but it's just too spicy in some mixes, devoting into like just a splashy mess. The red nozzle, it tones down the upper mid-range energy at the cost of some instrumental nuance. I think the black nozzles are doing the best job with the mid-range of the D-Major. Treble on the D-Major with the black and blue filters both have a very strong, airy presence. There's also the 8 kHz peaking energy, which is particularly strong on the blue nozzles, working well on some songs, giving the more gritty instruments some extra space to sort of show themselves and a sort of perceived clarity boost, but it is also prone to excessive crunchy artifacting. The red nozzles are quite good here. They kill that excess boosting without sacrificing too much detail and clarity. I kind of wish I could take the bass and the treble of the red nozzle with the mid-range of the black nozzle. I think the best bet would be choosing one of the set of the nozzles and doing some EQ to the other frequencies to your taste. The D-Major enjoys a slightly wider than average soundstage width, possibly due to the unconventional shell design. Vertical placement of instruments are also quite decent, aided due to the lighter tonality, resulting in better than average imaging capabilities in the price. Now, as for separation, the D-Major performs well in its price tier, placing above like a Truth Ear Zero, but it's, I'd say, one step behind the Tangzu Yu Xuan Ji. In most mixes, there's a good amount of macro and micro detailing being showcased, although the artifacting heard in some more complex mixes, well, it knocks a few points out of what could be a very technically competent IEM. So at the $50 price tier, we have the Tangzu Yu Xuan Ji that I reviewed a few weeks back to compare with the D-Major. Now both have a good amount of accessories, but I will give the slight edge to the Twistura IEM for including like a whole dongle with your purchase. That's always going to be a value add. Both IEMs, they employ unique designs that are photogenic, and they will qualify as ear jewelry if people see you wearing them, I'd say. But I am personally biased towards the Yu Xuan Ji's black and gold aesthetic. I just love that look. Now sound-wise, the D-Major is generally brighter than the Tangzu IEM. The low end is more conservative on the Twistura, whilst the Tangzu one, it has a bit more oomph for its bass. Mid-range on the Yu Xuan Ji, it's comparatively more relaxed and tonally consistent, I'd say, than the brighter, more intense presentation of the D-Major, which pushes vocals to the front of the mix. Treble energy on the D-Major is also more highlighted with an airier presentation, although with Tangzu it does not trail far behind. So how about the D-Major compared with the Rose IEM Star City 5 Pro that we had from last week? Now as far as the unboxing goes, both are including a lot of good stuff. Now that includes the dongles that come with both of them, but with the Star City, you're getting your money's worth for a bigger, more grandiose unboxing, a better carrying case. But for a D-Major, well, it does get you those tuning nozzles. A little bit of good stuff from both sides. Now as for sound, both are bright IEMs, but it's different types of brightness, I would say. The low end is about the same on both, very percussive and basically just a supporting element, although on the red nozzle, the Twistura has a bit more thumpiness. Lower mid-range is leaner on the Star City, which changes its overall tonality to be, I'd say, slightly more dry than the D-Major. Upper mids are both energetic, but the Star City, it's just, I'd say, more well composed. Whilst the D-Major, it can get expressive at the cost of some crunchy artifacting, especially with the black and blue nozzles. The hi-hats and cymbals, they benefit from the Rose IEM's very targeted, deliberate 7 kHz boost, whilst with the D-Major, it's got an 8 kHz peak, which sharpens up most elements in the mix with a more sort of spread out kind of sense. The D-Major in general will be more airy, but it can sometimes lose control of that high end, whilst the Star City is deliberately more niche and handles male vocals a bit better. Although I originally wanted the Twistura D-Minor, delivery mistakes gave me the Twistura D-Major. But quoting Bob Ross,
we don't make mistakes, we have happy accidents.
For $50 you get a nice, unique looking IEM, unconventional design, sporting free tuning nozzles that make a noticeable, appreciable difference to the sound, and it comes with a dongle to boot. Its bright sound is gonna be too spicy for treble sensitive listeners, although with the right nozzle and ear tip combination, it can be quite an accomplished set. And it serves as a good first entry for the young brand Twistura. Hopefully next time I order, I would actually get the D-Minor to see how this sound evolves. Alright, that's gonna be it for this video. Check out the new graph database I have. Join the Discord for more discussions. Of course, like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and if you can spare a few bucks, how about throwing it my way at my Patreon? It'll really help the channel out.